MLToys with your instructional video on how to install the Stage 5 Peg Perego motor gear kit into a white Peg Perego motor gearbox. Peg Perego cars have switched which gearboxes they use over the years. This has been their most popular gearbox, so we've started working with this one. It's a very strong gearbox. Durability-wise, this gearbox handles 24 volts quite well. It handles our 775 motors by itself quite well. The reason to go to the Stage 5 kit is it's actually boosting the speed a little on the car. We've changed the pinion gear from the stock 10-tooth pinion gear that comes on your 550 motor to a 13-tooth pinion gear. We've also shrunk the first gear down with less teeth than the original nylon one, and that gives you a higher top speed gear ratio. Peg Peregos traditionally have a slower gear ratio than, say, a Power Wheels brand car, and this is going to equal the playing field a lot for them. The installation of this is pretty simple. We have already pulled the stock motor out. That's just 2 screws that are in this hole with this holder, trying to make your life a little easier. Some of the older Peg Perego gearboxes had screws holding them closed. We really like that. Unscrew it and nice and easy. These 2 screws can stay in. The newer ones have these pop tabs on, there's 3 of them, 1, 2, and 3. Just take a large straight head screwdriver, push down in here, and slowly pop each one of these out. Do not break these tabs off or you won't be able to reseal the gearbox. That's an important thing. Do be careful as you pull them apart. Once you get that to pop out, you slowly pry this back and forth. We've got this one started already here. And when you pull it out, nothing's going to spring apart. There's simply 4 gears and 2 shafts in there. And that's how it comes apart. We have your final drive gear, your 3rd gear, which spins on the same shaft as the 1st gear, your 2nd gear, and then this is the 1st gear that we're going to be replacing. It is the weakest link in the box, but again, this is more of a performance upgrade than a durability one, even though you will get more durability. Now, in order to install the new motor gearbox, the new gears, we have ball bearings that the gears spin on. The ball bearings, besides making the gearbox more efficient, they reduce all the heat that gets built up from the gears spinning on this shaft. However, Peg Perego has a coating on these shafts, and a regular ball bearing will not fit in them out of the box. So what you need to do is pull the shaft out. It's just press fit in. And we're going to take this shaft and just put the very end of it, either end, it's the same on both ends, put it into a drill. I've got a sanding pad here, but you can use any, 220 sanding paper. We already got a start on this one, but you're just going to spin it. Just takes a few seconds. And every now and then go back and test and see if your bearing will slide smoothly onto the shaft. That's all that takes. It's a very simple thing. Required to make it work though. Make sure you put the end of the shaft that was not sanded back into the gearbox. You can tell it's a little shinier there. I'm going to insert that in. Slide a ball bearing on. Get it all the way to the bottom. Drop the gear in. Isn't that pretty? Drop the 2nd ball bearing in. Seat that down into the gear. And then 1st gear we don't need anymore. 2nd gear, we're just going to sit that in place. 3rd gear back on the 1st gear shaft. Final drive gear. Now if you're adding lubrication, I highly encourage you to add more lubrication right here. Grease isn't so much for the gears. Nylon gears are self-lubricating. Add it right there if you want to add some more. Pop that in. And pop that closed and latch the latches closed. Now for the motors, these motors get these universal motor mounts. The holes in your 550 motor are closer together and they use a 3mm screw, whereas 775s use a 4mm screw. So this is a motor mount kit that when you pop that on, there's some countersunk holes there that you'll use the screws that we provide you. Tighten them down. A little thread lock is always recommended on those screws, and hand snug them tight. And then the pinion gear will slide on the shaft, and we provide set screws that go on the pinion gear. You want to get that all the way down the shaft. And then once you have that completed and tightened on, you're just going to put that in and line the holes up with your original screws. Well, as such. And bolt it all back together. And you'll have a completed motor gearbox. Be sure to follow the break-in instructions after that. What that entails is putting the gearboxes back in the car. We want the left side on the left side, the right side on the right side. You didn't have to mark it taking them out of the car, but going back in, you do want to keep the gearboxes on the same side always, because the motors break in the direction they'll be turning mostly. Once you get the motor gearboxes back in the car and the tires back on, keep the rear end of the car raised up and put power to the motors in low speed of whatever voltage you're going to run the car at, either 18 volt, 24 volt, keeping it at 12 volt, that's fine. Let that run in the air for about 15 minutes. If you find that one tire comes to a stop while you're doing that, that's perfectly normal. If your car is doing that, have your child drive the car for 15 minutes in forward only, no reverse, no high speed, and try to avoid stopping as much as safely possible. That seats the motor brushes on the car so that you'll get a higher speed, cooler motors, more runtime, and longer life out of them. And that's all there is to the Stage 5 Peg Perego motor gearbox set.